my yarny friends, I'm Sach. Welcome back to my crochet channel. I am super glad you're here today because it's Friday Fun Day and I have a really sweet Friday Fun Day headband for you. I'm calling this the Sweet Bow Headband because by cinching it in here, it looks like a bow. And one of the neat things about this pattern is our shell stitches sort of resemble hearts. All hook together. It's a very simple pattern and it's super easy to adjust. Just measure your head, make it as long as it's needed, then we'll join the ends together and cinch it up. And you can add an applique, and I'll put the link for this pattern for this little heart underneath this video so you can find that on my YouTube channel. But you could also put a pretty flower. Here's another type of button. It's a sparkly pink and purple one. Kind of looks red on camera, but it's actually a really bright pink. Red would be fine too. Or leave it off and you don't have to put any kind of embellishment on your headband. Like I said, it's super easy, super fun, and super easy to adjust. And it takes such a small amount of yarn, you could use your yarn stash and make a bunch and a lot of different colors to go with a lot of different outfits. Now you can find the complete pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make our Sweet Bow headband, all you need is about an ounce of any medium weight number 4 yarn. Now I use this because I had this left over from another project that I'm working on. And this is the Premier Basix Marl. And this color is called Rose Quarts. And it does have sort of a variegated ombre sort of blend to it. It moves from like a light pink to a gray to a darker pink, and it's really fun. But you know what? You can use any medium weight number 4 yarns for this project. I think acrylic would be best. You could do cotton. It would work as long as you're using a medium weight number 4 yarn. And of course, whatever kind of embellishments that you want to add or not. And we're going to be stitching today with our H hook. It's a 5mm crochet hook. Then after that, all you need is a needle for weaving in ends and a pair of scissors. And remember, it's a great scrap happy project because it only takes about an ounce to make this, depending on how big or how small that you make it. And I'll talk about that, how to adjust that when we get started in just a few seconds. All right, let's get started. We're going to begin with our slip knot. And we're going to loosely chain 13 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And we need this row to be just a little bit loose because we're going to be stitching in long and then put the 2 ends together to form our headband. Now we're going to stitch a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of those double crochets across our row. Alrighty, almost there. Just 1 double crochet in each of the chains across. And chain 3. Alright, so we began in the 4th chain from the hook, and this chain 3 over here counts as our first double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 double crochets, chain 3 for row 1. Now we're going to start our lacy rows. So our chain 3 counts as our first. We're going to turn our work. We're going to double crochet in the next stitch. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to skip 3. 1, 2, 3. And in that next stitch, we're going to stitch our shell stitch. And our shell stitch is 2 double crochets. There's 1 and 2. We're going to chain 1 and stitch 2 more right in that same stitch. 1 and 2. Then we'll chain 2. We'll skip the next 3. 1, 2, 3, and that leaves 2 stitches. And we'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 2 stitches. And chain 3. All right, so let's take a look at that. So we have 2 double crochets, chain 2, skip 3, then we have our shell stitch, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets all stitched in that next stitch. We chain 2, we skipped 3, and that left us 2 at the end, and we double crocheted in those last 2 stitches and chain 3. And that is row 2. Now we're ready for row 3. We've chained 3. We're going to turn our work. We're going to double crochet in that next double crochet. And so on every row, the chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to chain 2. We're going to go in that chain 1 space and stitch our shell stitch. 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. Right in that chain 1 space of our previous shell stitch. All right, then we're going to chain 2, and we'll go right over to these last 2 double crochets and stitch 1 double crochet in each of those 2. And chain 3. All right, so let's take a look at that. So again, we have 2 double crochets, chain 2, our shell stitch, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets on the end, chain 3. And see how that looks? And it sort of gives an appearance of a heart there. Now for row 4, we're just going to repeat what we did on row 3. Chain 3, turn, double crochet in that next double crochet, and chain 2. We'll go to that chain 1 space of our shell stitch and stitch 2 double crochets. 1, 2, chain 1, and 2 double crochets right in that chain 1 space. Chain 2, and that brings us over here to those last 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 3. All right, and so you can see how the pattern is working up. 2 double crochets, chain 2, our shell stitch in the chain 1 space, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, and chain 3. So now we're ready for row 5, which again is just like we just did. So double crochet in the next double crochet, chain 2, we'll go to the chain 1 space and stitch our shell stitch, double crochet, chain 1, and 2 more double crochets. 1 and 2. Now we'll chain 2 and stitch 1 double crochet in those last 2 double crochets. And again, chain 3. So again, we have 2 double crochets, chain 2, shell stitch, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. Then we have our chain 2 and 2 double crochets on the end. Chain 3, ready for the next row. All right, and so now I think you can pretty much see the way the repeat rows are going to work. So now this is where you're going to need your tape measure, because what you're going to do is continue to repeat row 5 for as long as you need it to be. Now, if you're going to make it to fit a 22 to 24 inch head, an adult or youth size head, you're going to need to repeat this for 25 more rows, and that will get you up to row 30. But it may be too long. Maybe you're making this for a smaller head, or you want it a little more roomy. But keep in mind, this is very stretchy, and sometimes yarn can stretch when you're wearing it because we want it to be comfortable, so we make it with a little bit of stretch. So keep that in mind. So measure as you go and make sure it's going to fit the head that you want it to fit, and then we'll do that last row. If you're doing it according to the pattern that I have written, you're going to need to repeat row 5 for 25 more rows. I have completed those 25 additional rows, so that brings me up to row 30. I want you to see how that looks. Isn't that pretty? It's very open and lacy, and you can see those stitches look a lot like hearts. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make a row of solid double crochet on this end. That way we can put the two ends together. Alright, let's do this last row. We've chained 3. We're going to double crochet in the next double crochet. We're going to place 1 double crochet in this chained 2 space. We're going to stitch a double crochet in the 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to stitch 1 double crochet in this chain 1 space. We're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 2 double crochets. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in the chain 2 space, and then 1 double crochet in these last 2 double crochets. All right, and now we're just going to chain 1. And so you should have 11 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 double crochets. All right, so I just chained 1. We're going to place the 2 ends together. Tail of yarn out of the way. Make sure you don't twist this, okay? You want it to be flat. And now we should have the same number on both ends because we started with 11 and we have 11 on this row. All right, so we'll just go right in that first stitch and go right in that first stitch on this side and slip stitch. And we'll just place 11 slip stitches. And this will give us like a nice smooth seam. And if you have the right number of stitches, everything should line up perfectly. Okay, I do want to show you on the inside that's going to have a nice seam. And this is where we're going to do our cinching. And so this will all be covered. All right, so I'm just going to continue across, slip stitching my 2 ends together. I have slip stitched that together. I have 11 stitches. Okay, we are going to tie off, but we're going to leave a long tail because this is what we're going to use the cinch it in. And I've got a really long tail here. You probably only need about 24 inches. All right, but we got to pull that all the way through here. There we go. Snug that down. And before we do the cinching in, we're going to grab our needle and weave in this other end. I want to make sure the end of that's not going to come undone. So I make a couple loop stitches there, and then I'm just going to weave this across. Okay. All right, and that's how that seam's going to look on the outside or the inside, and that's how that seam looks on the outside. All right, so now we're going to turn this right side out. There's our nice seam. And we're going to take this and we're going to scrunch this up. And we're just going to start wrapping this around. And I'm going to come from this direction. There we go. And I like to kind of wad it up in my hand or you end up chasing it. All right. You want to make sure it gets all scrunched up there. And you're just going to start wrapping it around. You want to make it nice and tight. And you want to go across. I'm a little too far there. There we go. I'm going to go around this way. And you just keep wrapping it until it's the way you want it to look. And you want it to be secure. And I wanted it to be a little bit wider. And so I went one way. And then I'll come back across. And it's kind of up to you the amount of wraps you want to do. There we go. I'm getting all tangled in there. And I just want to make sure that I'm far enough on both sides. And I do have way too much yarn here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it to the back. Clip it a little bit. All right, then I'm going to take my needle, and I've got a little loop there. I'll just stitch that down, and that happens sometimes. All right, so I'm going to go under here, and see, I'll just grab that and stitch that down. And again, this is the inside, and you want to make sure that's nice and secure. So go through some of those strands of yarn, back and forth, until you are happy that that is not going to come undone. Because you don't want your pretty headband coming undone while you're wearing it. Now, if you're not into cinching it up, you don't want to, you don't have to. You can wear it flat if you want. There we go. I just want to use up as much of that as possible. All right, so now we have it all cinched in. Isn't that pretty? I decided on this one. I'm going to see if my needle will get through there. I may have to go with a smaller needle. Yep, let me grab a smaller needle. There we go. All right. Now, if you want to use an embellishment, you can always, like I said, this is a button I made with polymer clay. It's a little heart. You could always use a crocheted heart. And like I said, I'll put the pattern for this underneath. I did a video on that several years ago if you want to do that. But you could always add an extra little bow or anything that you wanted to your hat, or I'm sorry, headband. I made my little loop. Now I'm going to put my flower on. And this makes it just a little bit more girly if you're a little bit more girly girl. And if you're not, don't add the embellishment. It just gives you, an option to add something fun and personal to it. All right, now what I'm going to do is just tie that knot underneath there. All right, and we'll just give that a clip. And now I have a little flower on my Sweet Bow Headband. And so here are the two that I made. This one I left the embellishments off. It's super cute. It doesn't really need the embellishment, but if you're someone who likes to spruce it up a bit, add a button, add a heart, whatever you want, and spruce it up. I just love them. They're super cute, super easy, super lacy. And again, there's lots of options here, because if you don't want to cinch it up, just put the two ends together and you've got a regular O headband. So, I like a pattern with options. All right, so that's our Sweet Bow Headband. Have some fun.